During the 3 years of the desert campaign, there was no home leave for British soldiers. Cairo and Alexandria were the only two cities where they could go to forget the fighting, only 120 miles away in the Western Desert. Rommel decides to take the offensive once more, and his tanks roll forward on May the 26th, 1942. He has received new and better armor and given new life to the Italian army. With characteristic speed, Rommel, the Desert Fox, unbalances the British defense by outflanking movements and attacks their static positions from the rear. In the space of a year, Rommel has come to know the desert, and he uses it to full advantage. General Koenig commands the 1st Free French Brigade entrenched at Bir Hakeim, an outpost guarding the approaches to Tobruk. He has served in Africa all his life and is at home in the desert. Expecting an enemy attack, he has ordered 1,200 defensive positions to be dug into the rocky ground. The French force consists of 3,600 men from all parts of the French Empire. The anti-aircraft guns are manned by French Marines, and the infantry comes from the Foreign Legion. They have 50 cannons and no tanks. Rommel opened his attack on the French position by sending in an Italian armored division. The Italians advance boldly and meet the dug-in soldiers of the Foreign Legion. The French improvise an anti-tank defense by using fast-firing 75mm guns, which had first been used in World War I. Although the Italians bravely attempt to break through, they are stopped, leaving 32 tanks and armored cars burning in front of the French entrenchments. Rommel has to reinforce the Italians with the veterans of his own Africa Corps. The Germans cut off the French and begin an all-out attack to remove the last obstacle on the road to Tobruk. The French resistance, against great odds, earns the respect of Rommel himself. He sends them an ultimatum. If they raise the white flag and surrender their weapons, they will be spared. The French reply with artillery fire. Rommel sends in Stuka dive bombers to blast the defenders from their emplacements and attacks on the ground with 2 crack divisions. In the end, the pressure is too great, and General Koenig decides to try and break out of the German grip at night. By choosing an unexpected direction, the French drive through the center of the German lines and after fierce hand-to-hand fighting, cut their way out to join the main body of the British Army 30 miles away. Rommel now has the way clear to Tobruk, but he has been held up for 10 days. The Africa Corps is determined that this time the British will not hold out in Tobruk as they did in the previous year. Now, the Germans make full use of their outstanding anti-aircraft weapon, the 88mm cannon, which has been adapted to knocking out the British tanks attempting to counterattack. Rommel urges on his soldiers, and on the morning of June the 20th, they're in sight of Tobruk. British shipping is caught in the harbour. The surrender of Tobruk is a bitter humiliation for the 8th Army. The defences of the fortress had been neglected since the siege of the previous year. Anti-tank ditches had been allowed to fill with sand, and the South African garrison had been surprised by the speed and strength of the German onslaught. Rommel and the Afrika Korps capture 30,000 men and their equipment. The victory is hailed by a special communique from the High Command in Berlin. Churchill takes the news very badly. He regarded Tobruk as a symbol of British resistance. Rommel and the Afrika Korps were at the summit of their achievements. A hard but generous leader, he always saw that his men shared in his successes. The soldiers of the Afrika Korps set the style for the German army, and their caps became the model for the rest of the Wehrmacht. Always outnumbered, Rommel, by nerve and guile, was always a jump ahead of his opponents. Summoned to Berlin by a delighted and grateful Hitler, Rommel finds that he has become a legend in less than 2 years of desert fighting. Hitler makes him a field marshal, and the inevitable triumph of German might seems unquestioned. Rommel, the good soldier, still believes it possible to fight a gentleman's war during the reign of Adolf Hitler's Third Reich. Winston Churchill experiences his worst moments in the Desert War after the fall of Tobruk. He had received the bad news while in conference with President Roosevelt, and the humiliation was galling. In Cairo, the soldiers give him an enthusiastic welcome, and it seems to hearten the troubled British leader. General Auchinleck, always the professional soldier, has little regard for public relations. He shows no special consideration for Churchill when he comes to inspect operations, and the lunch served for the Prime Minister's visit is no different than the headquarters mess usually provides. Taking things in hand personally, Churchill orders an immediate counterattack. Auchinleck refuses. He has enough trouble just holding his position at the little railway stop of El Alamein. Auchinleck had carefully chosen the ground for the final stand. It was the only spot where both his flanks were secure. To the north by the sea, and 38 miles south by the Katara Depression, an impassable area of quicksand and salt marsh 200 feet below sea level. Churchill returns to Cairo in August and changes the military command. He dismisses Auchinleck. Although he had chosen to stand at El Alamein, Auchinleck would not be allowed to fight the battle. Churchill chooses General Sir Harold Alexander as Commander-in-Chief of the Middle East, and Lieutenant General Bernard Montgomery to command the 8th Army. General Gott had been first choice for this post, but the day after his appointment, Gott was killed in an air crash, and Churchill replaced him with Montgomery. Major General Sir Francis de Guingamp remembered.
And I remember when he got there, he told me the very first day I'd met him outside Alexandria and driven up with him and given him a verbal report of what was happening on the front. And he told me to get all the staff assembled on the Weiss's Bridge that very evening. And I remember saying, okay, it's going to be very difficult. So he said it was got to be done. And so it was done. And I shall never forget that moment. There he was, this little man, quite white, not bronze, by the sun, as most of us were. And there he gave an oration, I would call it, which was second to none, which had the most fantastic effect on everyone who heard.
Very quickly he left his headquarters in order to make a tour of the front. Incidentally, during this tour, he used to borrow the headdress from soldiers in the various divisions. At one time he wore a New Zealand hat, another time an Australian hat, and so on. He became known as the general who wore funny headdress.
When I arrived at the headquarters of the 8th Army on the 13th of August, 1942, at about 11 o'clock in the morning. Now, when you take command of a large army that is at close grips with a victorious and skillful enemy, you can't afford to make mistakes. I then insisted that all existing plans and orders for withdrawal must be cancelled. If Rommel attacked, we would fight at Alamein. If we couldn't stay there alive, we would stay there dead.
Montgomery, immediately called Monty by the men of the 8th Army, learns that his troops will be equipped with the latest tanks and artillery. Morale improves as a flood of American arms arrives. Hundreds of Sherman and Grant tanks, the only armor that can stand up to the German Panzer Mark IIIs and IVs. Now, Montgomery will benefit from his short supply lines, which stretch only some 60 miles, while Rommel's Africa Corps is 1,400 miles away from their main base in Tripoli. The British Desert Air Force is nearby, with its main airfields in the Nile Delta. The Germans are now paying the full price for not eliminating Malta. The Royal Navy and Royal Air Force sink 3 out of 4 of the oil tankers that try to bring